lights are dim, the world's asleep, but here you stand where shadows creep. Your hand in mine, a gentle glow. Through every storm, through every climb, you are my reason, you are my rhyme. Forever mine, you'll always be. Like rivers running to the sea, no stars could shine as bright as you. Forever mine, my love is true.
Many years ago, in a small dusty village where dreams seemed like faraway stars, beautiful to look at, yet impossible to reach, there was a young girl named Benny. She lived with her mother, who worked herself to the bone to take care of her and her two younger siblings. Benny was the firstborn, and with that came the heavy responsibility of helping her mother. Even though she was just a girl, the village was poor, and their houses was a small mud hut, barely standing with its creaky roof and cracked walls. But in that little house, Benny had a voice that was pure and golden, a voice that could make even the hardest heart melt. Benny's voice was a treasure. When she sang, it was like magic. The village folk said her voice could make the cripple walk and the blind see. It was so beautiful people couldn't help but stop whatever they were doing to listen to her. Sometimes they would even forget where they were going and wander into her compound, standing by the fence like they were enchanted by the sound. They would stand there for hours, caught in the soothing melody that made them forget their troubles, their worries, even their hunger. She loved singing so much that it didn't matter if there was no food on the table or if the house was falling apart. Her dreams were big and her heart was full of hope. Benny would listen to the songs of famous singers on the radio and learn them by heart. Then she would sing them with so much passion that it was like she had written the songs herself. People often joke that if you close your eyes, you will think it was the original singer standing there in her little compound. But life, as it always does, wasn't as kind as her voice. Benny's father passed away when she was very young, and it broke her heart into a million pieces. He was the one who had told her she could do anything, the one who made her believe in her dreams. After he died, it was just Benny and her mother, who was the poor woman struggling to make ends meet. Benny became the backbone of the family. Her mother was always tired, always working, and always praying. Benny took on the weight of the world, even though she was only a child. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, wishing she could do more, wishing she could change things for them. She loved her mother so much, and the thought of her mother's tired eyes and worn-out hands pushed Benny to dream bigger. She wanted to be the one to take her mother out of poverty, to bring her the life she deserved. The village didn't offer much, and the rich men who came around wanting to marry Benny didn't help. They were old enough to be her grandfathers, and though their gold rings and shiny clothes tempted her, Benny knew there was more to life than what they had to offer. She knew she wanted more than the life they could give her, no matter how many times they promised her comfort and riches. The old men of Benny's village just couldn't leave her alone. Every time they came around with their heavy gold rings and slow drawn-out speech, she turned them away. They were so eager to marry her, thinking her beauty and voice would bring them comfort in their old age. But Benny had no time for that. She was only 17 and had dreams too big for their hands to hold. But then came a day that changed everything. Benny's aunt from Lagos came to visit the village. She was a hard-working woman, always busy running her small restaurant in the city. And she could see that Benny's dreams were bigger than what the village could offer. Seeing the way Benny handled the pressure of the old men, Her aunt pulled her aside and asked, "Benny, I know what you want. I see it in your eyes. Why don't you come live with me in Lagos? Start afresh. I could use your help in my restaurant." Benny's heart skipped a beat. Lagos, the city she had heard so many stories about, the big city where dreams came true. She thought of the village, the slow days, and the suffocating weight of the men who kept pestering her. She wanted more. And just like that, Benny made the decision with her mother's approval. She said her goodbyes, hugged her mother tightly, and packed her small bag. She wasn't just leaving the village, she was leaving her childhood behind, ready to step into a new world. When Benny arrived in Lagos, it was nothing like she had imagined. The noise hit her first, the honking of cars, the shouts of street vendors, and the blaring music from every corner. The city was alive in a way that was almost too much for Benny. The buildings were tall and looked like giants, casting long shadow over the crowded streets. She had seen pictures of Lagos, but they didn't prepare her for the overwhelming mix of people and the thick scent of exhaust fumes that filled the air. Her aunt's restaurant was located in a busy area of Lagos, surrounded by shops and more people than Benny had ever seen in her life. The first day, she helped her aunt set tables and serve food. Her aunt's restaurant was small but always full. It felt like Benny had stepped into another world, where everyone moved fast and the sense of urgency was palpable. Here, in this city, no one had time to stop for anything. Benny was taken aback at first. She wasn't used to this fast-paced lifestyle, where everyone seemed to be in a hurry to go somewhere. Her hands were always busy, carrying plates of jollof rice, fried plantains, and grilled fish, trying to keep up with the demands of the customers. But it wasn't just the restaurant that overwhelmed Benny. It was the people. She had never seen such a variety of people before. Different faces, different clothes, different languages, and different ways of life. The city was a sea of individuals, each living their own story. Some were rich, some were poor, and some were so focused on survival that they had no time to care about anyone else. The street hawkers shouted at her as she passed by, trying to sell anything from bread to bottled drinks. Benny had to keep her head low because if she even looked at anything for too long, they would rush over her and pressure her to buy something. But what bothered Benny the most were the touts. They were everywhere in Lagos. Men who acted like they owned the streets, forcing money from those who tried to bypass. Benny had heard stories about them, but now she was facing them firsthand. They would shout at her, trying to take advantage of her inexperience. But Benny wasn't going to let anyone push her around. Every time she was harassed, she would look them in the eyes and stand tall. She knew she had to be strong. She was in Lagos now to make her dreams come true. And nothing, no tout, no rude customer, no city noise was going to stop her. After her shift at the restaurant, Benny would walk the streets of Lagos, soaking in everything around her. The streets were lined with people hustling, looking for their next opportunity. There were shops selling all sorts of things, from clothes to gadgets, and sometimes Benny would stop by the next market, feeling completely out of place among the fast-moving city folks. But no matter how much she tried to blend in, she still feels like the village girl who didn't belong here. Her clothes were old-fashioned compared to the trendy ones the girls in Lagos wore. And she didn't know how to speak the way the city people did. They talked fast, with the words she couldn't quite understand. But Benny smiled and carried on, always remembering what her mother had taught her. Be proud of who you are, Benny. No matter where you are, don't forget where you come from. Benny had nothing but her dreams, her golden voice, and the advice her mother had given her before she left. You are going to make it, Benny. Just remember, no matter how hard it gets, don't give up. You are stronger than you think. She sang quietly to herself whenever she had a moment of peace, trying to shut out the noise of the city. She knew her voice was her ticket to something bigger, and she wasn't going to stop chasing that dream. As time passed, Benny slowly adapted to the hustle and bustle of Lagos. She started to understand the rhythm of the city, how people moved, how they talked, and how they made things happen. Even though Benny had formal education to an extent, but her street education, her natural talent, and her fierce determination kept her going. Her aunt's restaurant became her second home, but Benny knew that this wasn't enough. She wasn't going to spend her life serving food to people who didn't care about her. Her voice was meant for bigger things. But how was she going to make it? Every day she asked herself that. But then she will remember her mother's words. You have everything you need to succeed, Benny. Just keep going. And so, Benny kept going. Through the noise, the chaos, and the tough days. Benny's life in Lagos had become a strange mix of hope and despair. She worked hard at her own small restaurant, always helping with the cooking, serving food and cleaning the tables. It wasn't the glamorous life she had dreamed of when she first left the village, but it was a life, one that at least kept her busy. Benny couldn't stop thinking about her mother and siblings back in the village though. She worried about them all the time, how they were managing, what they were eating, and if her mother was still praying and believing that Benny's dream would come true. Sometimes, after a long day, Benny would sit by the window, staring out at the busy Lagos streets, and feel a deep ache in her chest. She missed home. She missed her mother, but her mother's word always comforted her. We can manage, Benny. Just make sure you don't give up. Benny clung to those words like a lifeline. One day, her aunt asked her to stay home while she went to the restaurant alone. Benny was confused but agreed, thinking it would be a good chance to get some rest. But that day, everything changed. Mr. Isaac, her aunt's husband, approached her with a look she had never seen before. At first, Benny didn't understand. Isaac had always been kind to her, like a father figure, but today something in his eyes was different. And he wasn't looking at her the same way. He sat next to her on the couch, too close, and started talking in a low, soft voice. Benny, you are such a beautiful girl, he said, his words lingering in the air like smoke. You remind me of my wife when she was younger, so full of life, so full of promise. Benny shifted uncomfortably, not knowing how to respond. She had always seen Isaac as a father, a trusted man of the house. But now something felt off. Sir, I really should get back to the kitchen now, she said, standing up quickly to avoid the conversation. But Isaac wasn't ready to let her go. He grabbed her hand, his finger cold and tight, and pulled her back towards him. Don't be shy, Benny, he said, his voice now dripping with something Benny didn't want to acknowledge. You're a woman now. You should know how much I care for you. I can help you get everything you want in life. Benny's heart raced. This wasn't right. She had heard about such things happening in the city, but never thought it would happen to her. She pulled away from him, her face pale, her mind racing. Sir, please, Benny said, her voice shaking. I don't want this. Please let me go. But Mr. Isaac wasn't backing down. Night after night, he found his way to sneak into her room. Each time, Benny refused his advances, pushing him away as best as she could. But it was always harder than the last. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't go to her aunt, not without destroying their family. Mr. Isaac had always been so charming, so trusted, and Benny feared his anger if she ever told her aunt what was happening. It wasn't until one fateful night when Mr. Isaac had entered her room again that everything fell apart. The door creaked open and Benny's heart skipped. Mr. Isaac grabbed her from behind, pulling her close as she struggled to free herself. Then, just as Benny was about to scream, the front door banged open, and there stood her aunt. What is going on here? Her aunt shouted, her voice full of disbelief. She rushed forward, grabbing Benny by the arm. You filthy girl! I trusted you. You have been sleeping with my husband. Is this how you repay me for taking you in? Benny's world stopped. She didn't even know how to respond. Her aunt's face was twisted in anger, calling her every name under the sun. Husband snatcher, Jezebel, you came here to ruin my home. In that moment, Benny's heart shattered. Her aunt stormed into her room, grabbed all of Benny's belongings, her clothes, her shoes, everything, and tossed them outside with fury. Get out! I don't want to ever see you here anymore. You are no better than a thief. Benny stood frozen, in shock, unable to believe what was happening. The woman who had once taken her in, the woman she had trusted, was now turning her away. She was all alone in the city, with no place to go. With her heart heavy, Benny gathered her things, trying to find some shred of dignity as she stepped out of the house. She walked down the busy Lagos road, not knowing where to go. She had no money, no food, and nowhere to sleep. The city that had once promised her a bright future now felt cold and heartless. And what would she even tell her mother? What could she say to explain how everything had fallen apart? For the first time since she left the village, Benny felt completely lost. She walked for hours, the bright lights of Lagos streets blurring in front of her. No money for a bus, no place to stay, and the shame of it all threatening to drown her. By the time the sun set, Benny found herself at a bridge. The streets were busy, people rushing past her, but she had nowhere to go. She couldn't go back to the restaurant. She couldn't face her aunt. So she found a small corner under the bridge, covered by the darkness, and curled up on the cold concrete trying to sleep. Night after night, Benny lived under that bridge, hiding from the world. She had no choice but to beg for food, her pride crushed with every plea for help. She fought off the touts who tried to harass her, shouting at them to leave her alone, her voice shaking with anger and fear. But Benny was strong, stronger than she realized. Every morning before the sun rose, she would sneak out to bath near the bush and dress up quickly. She would go out to the busy street again, begging for food, asking for help, anything to survive. When the night came, she returned to her small space under the bridge, where she could sleep for a few hours before waking up early to begin again. This went on for weeks, but Benny never gave up. She knew she couldn't go back home. She knew she couldn't let her mother see her like this. She had come to Lagos to build a better life, and she would do whatever it took to survive. In all this, Benny refused to sit still and let life pass her by. Her first instinct was to survive. She couldn't just stay under the bridge forever. No, Benny knew she had to fight, even if the city seemed like it had no place for her. Her first step was to find work, anything to get her off the streets and away from the constant humiliation of begging for food. She started walking the busy streets of Lagos, entering every shop she could find. The first place she tried was a supermarket. The bright lights and organized aisles made her heart race with hope. She walked up to the counter where the hiring manager sat, and with all the courage she could muster, she asked for a job. "Good day, sir. I am looking for work," Benny said, trying to sound confident. "I can clean, I can pack, I can do anything." The hiring manager didn't even look up from his computer. "You don't have any experience," he said, almost dismissively. "Come back when you have worked somewhere else." Benny's heart sank. She had never been to a supermarket like this in the village, but she didn't give up. There were more shops in Lagos, and she wasn't going to let one rejection stop her. She left the supermarket and walked to the next place, a local hair salon she had passed many times. She had heard that salons always needed help, especially with cleaning and assisting customers. She walked in hoping for a chance, but the owner looked her up and down with a sneer. "Please leave," the woman said sharply. "You are too dirty to work here. I can't have someone looking like this in my shop." Benny's cheek flushed with embarrassment, but she refused to let the insult crush her. She walked out of the salon, her head held high, even as her stomach growled from hunger. She had been through worse in the village. This wasn't going to break her. Her determination led her to more places, And each time she was turned away, she felt a little more defeated, but a little stronger too. She walked the streets asking for work wherever she could. She tried shops, cleaning services, and small offices. Some people ignored her, while others simply shook their heads. There was always a reason why she wasn't good enough. You are too inexperienced. You don't look like the right fit. We are not hiring right now. Days passed, and Benny's hunger grew. She began to rely on the kindness of strangers, those who saw her walking the streets with her pleading eyes. Some gave her a little change, some food, others a few kind words, but the road was rough. And Benny wasn't sure how long she could keep going like this. Every night she would return to her small spot under the bridge, exhausted and rejected. But every morning she would wake up and go back out. There was no other choice. Benny wasn't a quitter. She wasn't going to let the city swallow her. She dreamed of something bigger, something better. It was in this moment of hardship that Benny found the strength to push forward. Even when the world seemed to have nothing left to give her, she knew one thing for sure. If she kept trying, one day someone would see her. Someone would recognize the determination in her eyes and the strength in her heart. And then her life would change. But for now, Benny had to make do. She didn't stop trying. She didn't stop fighting. And little by little, she started gathering enough money to begin again, to start her small fruit business. And with every orange she sold, with every song she sang, Benny took one more step towards the life she had dreamed of. She began selling oranges on the streets, singing to her customers as she walked. Her golden voice brought a smile to the faces of everyone who heard it. And slowly, her fruit business grew. People came not just for the sweet oranges, but for the sweet melody that followed Benny wherever she went. She had finally found her place. Benny was no longer the girl who had been tossed aside. She was the girl who had fought for her life. And now she was taking charge of her future. Benny's life began to change in the most unexpected ways, all because of one thing she had: her voice. Every day, as she sat at her small store selling oranges, people gathered around her. It wasn't just her fresh, juicy oranges that attracted them. It was the way her voice seemed to wave magic into the air. Her melodies were like a balm, soothing the weary souls of those who happened to pass by. Some customers simply listened and clapped, encouraging her with kind words, while others, moved by her spirit, will toss a little extra money into her basket as a gesture of gratitude for the joy her voice brought them. With each passing day, Benny's reputation as the girl with the golden voice spread, and more people came to her store, not just to buy fruit, but to hear her sing. Benny saved up a little penny she could, determined to make something of herself. Eventually, after months of hard work, she was able to buy two small phones. One she sent back to her mother, along with a heartfelt message telling her how much she missed her and how hard she was working to build a better life. The other phone was kept for herself, a small step towards independence. Now she could communicate with her family easily, sending them little bits of money every week to help out back home. Her mother's prayers were still with her. And though life in Lagos was tough, Benny felt the weight of those prayers lifting her, keeping her moving forward. Her sales had improved. Benny could now sell 3 or 4 bags of oranges in a week, all while singing to her customers. She had even made a few good friends, neighbors who helped her with the sales, cheering her on as she sang. The energy around her store had shifted. Benny wasn't just a girl selling fruit anymore. She was a beacon of hope, joy, and resilience in the heart of the city. And as her voice continued to enchant those around her, she felt something big brewing just beyond the horizon.